Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of Verifiably Random. My name is Min.
And I'm Marc.
And that awkward silence is the missing of Mr. John Woods. Marc, what happened to John?
I don't know. Did he take off early for his Christmas break? Maybe that's what's happening. I don't know.
Does he have something better to do than to host this show with us? I hope the answer is
and we
no.
have some big shoes to fill here. But we'll do what we can to entertain.
So it's just going to be the two of us for you guys today. But we have a really exciting episode for you. So Marc, let's start with the latest and the greatest that's happening in the ecosystem, shall we? Since we last caught up together.
So the first thing you're going to say is governance, right?
That's right. This morning, we just announced that we're going to be running another governance period 14. That's going to start on January the 1st for Q1 of 2025. This is going to be sort of a continuation of all the previous governance periods that we've run. All the discussions are open now to take place. So please go to the forum and drop your thoughts. I think, Marc, this is, one thing that's important to say is this is different from the staking rewards that will be launching in the beginning of Q1. This is, of course, to make sure that we continue the momentum, right, for all the ecosystem projects as we anticipate the launch of staking rewards.
Yeah, I think this is really important to mention. Staking rewards is currently scheduled to launch towards mid-January if all goes well. And so we just wanted to make sure that there's no gap in between the ending of the previous governance period and then the start of staking rewards, because that's not a great idea. And so therefore we decided to extend and create a new governance period that would run until the end of March. And then, of course, staking rewards will then launch hopefully towards mid of January, and then both will just run in parallel.
Yeah, which is super exciting. And actually, we're on the Para side, we're testing our staking. Of course, we're going to be supporting staking in Para, and I'm on test flight testing the next build, which has the staking menu up. As we're seeing Tiny Man and Folks Finance both already have launched their staking product. So, I know everybody's gearing up for that. But in the meantime, governance period 14 will be up and running, which, I think is a fantastic effort by Audrey and McKelly and the governance team to make sure that there's continuity for us.
And from a marketing perspective, we're also gearing up towards the big staking launch. And so one component of that is our new launch video that is also going to be a community-driven, community participating video. We shot it, I think, about a month and a half ago. And I think I just saw the final cut and it's just awesome. And so hopefully we'll launch it maybe even before the end of the year. We're thinking about maybe before Christmas, maybe just after Christmas. But yeah, so that launch video is coming very, very soon.
Oh, that's exciting. You're giving us a little bit of a teaser right now. I can tell.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. I really love it.
Nice. Are we going to see some repeat characters in there, you think?
There will be some repeat characters.
Okay.
I can't really say too much about that. But yes, you will recognize some members from the community. There's also some new members of the community that are going to be part of it for the first time as well. So yes,
nice.
The combination of the best of the past plus new characters coming in and joining us for this video. So I think it'll be fun.
That's fun. It's just like our ecosystem, right? The best of the past and new people building in our ecosystem. Just a reflection of how the growth that we're seeing. I love it. Speaking of our ecosystem, Marc, I think the other thing that's been really exciting is Exa Market launched their token. This has been a work in progress. They were part of this CoinList program, and then they joined the Coinbase Quest, and really was an attempt to kind of grow the excitement in the user base. And now it's so cool to see them finally launch. So congrats to the Exa Markets team.
Yeah, talking about tokens, Memecoins. Seems like the Memecoin season on Algorand is starting to gear up. We see several new Memecoin launches. And so very excited about Monco. Monco is going like crazy right now. And so people are getting very excited about that one. So
yeah.
But they see Memecoins launching every day. There's Meep, there's Mucali, all these new meme coins and all this activity and excitement happening. So it's pretty cool to see.
Oh, it's so sweet. It's so nice to see all the traction and all the excitement and all the activity. There's like on social as well, right? Just like picking up. What's your favorite? What's your favorite, Marc?
I mean, it has to be Monco. It has to be Monco.
It has to be. You know, this morning I learned a phrase from somebody on the team, Sarah, who just joined our partnerships team. She says, you've got to respect the meme. You know, you just got to go and respect the meme. They're doing a great job. Monco team is crushing it. So I love it. Yeah.
All these meme coins are really kind of creating their own communities and you know, building that engagement and building that excitement. And you know, people always question like, you know, are meme coins worth anything? But like it's part of like being part of a community, I find. And so you know, in non-crypto world, people are, you know, paying to be part of a community. Like if people go to a TED conference, you know, it's not about the TED Talks, it's about being part of the TED community and you're paying to be part of it. And the same thing in a way is true with meme coins, right? You're part of this community, and the way you participate in the community is you buy the token. And then, so I think it's very interesting. I think it's a very interesting phenomenon, and I think it's going to continue. And it's exciting to see so much activity happening on Algorand right now in that space.
Yeah, it's the new community building, right? These meme coins is basically how you grow your community. And in fact, I was talking to one of the builders, not in our ecosystem, but just they're trying to build a gaming platform. And one of the challenges they have is getting users to come and play, you know, like Web3 gaming, let's be honest, has been really challenging. The biggest reason is because it's hard to find the users, right? There are not that many users who are playing Web3 games. And one of the things that he is actually testing is, what if you start with a meme community and then you build the game for that community, right? It's almost like this is your user acquisition for a product. That's kind of the strategy or approach that he wants to test. And I think it's so smart because, to your point, it's all about building that community through the memes. And then it's about like, how do we make it more engaging? Can we build products? Can we sell them things? Can we, you know, what else can we do? So I think this is really exciting. And rugged on Ninja.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's quite vibrant. I was of course Akita too, like one of the kind of older kind of meme coins in the ecosystem, well known, but like
the OG meme,
the OG of meme coins on Algorand. But I was talking to Kyle about this, and he was talking about all of these vibrant communities that exist on Discord. He said like there was over 200 communities that are Algorand specific, all on Discord, where people are talking about and engaging with each other, and Akita, of course, is part of that. And I think it's so exciting to see that.
Yeah. No, it's super cool. I'm so excited that, you know, it's all this momentum and everything is picking up just in time for the holidays. You know, so it's really cool. You know, what's striking is, and this brings us a little bit to the kind of today's topic for the episode. What's striking is last episode, we were talking about impact with Matt Keller, our director of impact. And it's all about projects that are really having real world impact and kind of bringing in real world use cases. And I know meme coin sits on the opposite end of that spectrum, but, you know, the way I see the world is, you need to have these real world solutions, and then you need to have this community that's super excited about whether it's a meme coin or a project. And together, that's how we can kind of really expand, you know, the growth of this ecosystem. So I sort of see it as a spectrum, and I'm super excited to see that, you know, both are growing so nicely. And in fact, speaking of, you know, growth, I think for the topic of today's episode is all the growth that we're seeing in India. Marc, have you caught wind of stuff that's happening there?
I think it's super interesting. I mean, Electric Capital just came out with their report, a developer report, right? One of the things that they reported was that India is a country that onboarded the most new crypto developers of all countries in the world last year. So it is definitely a market where there's a lot of activity and a lot of excitement. And so,
That's
And
amazing.
I'm super excited to kind of dive deep into India on this episode.
Yeah. No, I love that stat. So why don't we do this? Why don't we bring our special guest onto the show? So introducing our VP of India, Anil Kakani. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Min. Hey, Mark. How are you guys?
Hey, Anil.
We're good. Welcome back. You were just in India a couple of days ago, weren't you?
I was. I feel like I'm always just in India a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I know. Never that far. So, Mark was just giving us that stat that he saw from Electric Capital around developers, how India onboarded the most number of Web3 developers this year. And I know that's an area that you've been focused on as well. But before diving into that, I just love to hear, I think for all the listeners as well, maybe give us a little bit of the origin story of how Algorand came to be, and you and what you've done and your role in it.
Yeah, I'd love to. First of all, I'm just trying to keep up with Fred Estante, trying to wear my algo gear here. So hope I don't have a tie. I don't have the tie. I was going to show
it. Yeah, Mark and I were like, you don't look the part.
I'm doing my best. Come on.
It's a good attempt, Anil.
Thank you. I mean, I need something to aspire to, right? So yeah, man, it's really exciting to be here. I come from a little more of a policy background, and my work in India really began around kind of policy interventions around capital markets, around creating liquidity in debt markets, and access to investors for public projects, et cetera. And one of the things that when you spend time in India and you look at disruption globally, disruption happens when there's need, when there's demand for a better solution than what currently exists, right? And a lot of my work prior to Algorand was really how do you bring access to services, to capital, to markets for the traditionally underserved communities, not because of charity or philanthropy, but because if you dig deeper into the lives of those folks, they're really trying to get more deeply connected to the labor force, right? Everyone's trying to get a job, but there's something happens that disrupts that journey, and they end up back, needing a safety net. And so my entry into India was like, there's all these initiatives. And of course, India with 1.4 billion people has a huge segment of the economy of the population that lives on the sidelines, right? That they get access to capital that's really expensive, or they don't get it. They have a huge amount of intermediation to get their product to a market. They have a real hard time getting quality education or healthcare services. And so, as I got to understand blockchain, but even more than blockchain, Algorand, the power of Algorand, the enterprise skill element to it, the low transaction cost, instant finality, that's where I really began to see how blockchain could help solve some of these problems that have not been fully addressed by the traditional providers or solutions.
Yeah, and so tell us actually how you went about building this, because you've done, and I will say Anil constantly reminds me, and during the period of us working together, I think at one point India surpassed China in its GDP, and he was like, "Hey, India's now there's so much growth happening in India." So, but talk to us about how you thought about growing the ecosystem in India, and what are the areas that you focused on?
Yeah, so our approach in India, our strategy has really been in threefold. One, kind of picking up on Mark's comment about developers, right? I mean, developers, India has had a pool of developers for the last couple decades. Obviously, it's been, the kind of the back office of the world for, the amount of IT development that happens in India to serve the world. We all know, those big IT service providers are based or have huge presence in India. So, a key element was, okay, how do we upskill, some of those developers to become Web3 developers? And then we have a massive population of, India's a very young country. So we know there's, if you look at the model of others that came before us, places that Mark's worked before and how they went into universities to train and educate the engineering and computer science students so that they were familiar with their platform. That became our approach. How do we go into universities and, kind of educate around blockchain and then, bring them to Algorand?
Our focus really is very much kind of developer oriented, right? I think as opposed to kind of retail, like the retail market in India is my understanding is quite challenging, right? I think in the ability for retail users to be able to participate in DeFi, it's not really a strong retail market, is it?
That's correct. That's correct. There's regulatory issues. There's other, so it's very developer and solution focused. Building those solutions. But there's other applications that we'll get into, and many of which were featured at our India summit. The solutions that are being built for the Indian market, right? So we'll talk about some of those. But you're right. Heavy focus on developers. And so we've got now blockchain clubs across the country, Algorand. And these are all, students that are really building their skill set. A lot of Python developers, obviously, as we know, in India as well, but really building, learning, how blockchain, what blockchain, what do you do on blockchain? So we put a heavy focus on that training program. We have partnerships with universities, with platforms like NASCOM, the Future Skills Prime platform, where we're pushing out content and engaging young developers to teach and train them on how to build on Algorand. So
is it fair to say that you're kind of developing like a funnel, think about it as a funnel, as like you starting like in universities, kind of educating people, holding their hand in terms of getting excited and interested in blockchain, and then talk a little bit more about the funnel approach.
Yeah. So again, if we talk about the universities, right, and it became to the point where it's really demand driven now, right? We initially started by going out to universities, but India is a huge country and very diverse, and lots of languages, lots of states, and so really it became where a student could initiate the process of starting your Algorand blockchain club, and then we started providing resources to those blockchain club leads to begin to train other students on their campuses. There's a professor who's an advisor, and once you reach a certain certain milestones, then maybe one of our ambassadors or one of us from the foundation team will actually do an event in that region. But yeah, huge funnel. We know not all of the young developers are going to go on to be builders and entrepreneurs, of course, but we want that energy and knowledge base to grow, and then develop that ability to filter that funnel so that we can support everybody depending on what they have in mind. But the ones that want to go on, and a big focus of our summit last week was connecting the developers that are ready for the next stage with startups, right? Startups that are looking for talent, for developers. So absolutely a huge funnel. We did our Road to Impact, our second kind of process to bring developers and startups into our ecosystem. That we did one in 2023. We did one this year. We went to a number of cities. We probably had over 800-900 developers that came across these events. And when you come to one of these events, it's really there's a workshop, but then you have an idea and you submit that idea, and then over the next 3 or 4 months, we help you take that idea into an actual solution. If you're a developer, it's going into your GitHub repo. If you're a startup, then you're developing, taking that idea and building out an MVP and pitching it, hopefully making it to a later round of competition.
And it's exciting, like the last Road of Impact, I think was it 10 companies that we then went on and supported financially to kind of build their products and launch them on mainnet?
So in 2023, right? So that was our Impact Summit last year, our big summit in Delhi last year. We had about that year. We didn't separate developers from startups. We learned a lot over the course of the year. That year it was all we just had one track, and that was for startups. And we had nearly 200 startups that came in. And over the course of the next couple of months, we filtered that down to 10. Those 10 ended up going into the Startup Lab. And the Startup Lab is what you're referring to is, our partnership with T-Hub. T-Hub is one of the largest tech incubators in the world, massive millions of square feet of startups, of governments, of large corporates that are there connecting with developers. And so we partnered with T-Hub for the first Startup Lab that they've ever had with a Web3 protocol. And so we actually took those 10 that came out of the Road to Impact, and then we opened it up to more. And so it was 20 total that came into that Startup Lab. We supported them for a year. the focus was product readiness, market readiness, investment readiness. 5 of them we invested in already. There's about 11 that have already moved to either testnet or mainnet and are launching, and they all were present and presenting and had booths at the India Summit this year.
You were mentioning initially kind of this, how you went about growing this ecosystem. It was developers. It sounds like startup was another area that you guys spend a lot of time nurturing. Yeah. And then, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the reason we got into this partnership with T-Hub is because we were overwhelmed. There's all these startups, and we, as a relatively lean team in India, it was really hard to figure out, back to this funnel concept. How do you know which ones to give what level of support to? So T-Hub really played offered a huge lift to us, because they did not only project management, but they assigned mentors, right? Industry veterans to mentor each of these companies. So we had many touch points, and we would get information back on, who's building what, where are they in their journey. So we would know, which ones do we provide the most technical support to, on the basics of wallet integration to UX to, the economics of running a Web3 company.
Can you give us a flavor for some of these companies? Some of the companies that are doing well, that have kind of gone through this process.
Yeah.
Like, what are the types of things that they're building?
Let me. I'll give you 2. They partnered with us at our event, our India Summit last week. One is a ticketing platform, which is called Asis, and it's a Web3 ticketing platform that really is, has 2 focuses. One is, creating that secondary market for tickets that addresses this issue of scalpers and bots that are coming in and getting all the tickets that doesn't benefit the artist or the event organizer. So it's a Web3 based solution for ticketing, and also not only the primary sale but the secondary sale. And they've already done, I think, 30,000 transactions on chain on mainnet on Algorand. So they're well advanced in their journey. The other piece that they're trying to add is fan engagement, right? So doing collectibles, doing NFTs that enable the artist to connect with real fans. So Asterix is a really exciting company, and we're going to see, I think, more and more from Asterix as they expand the types of events that they're offering their Web3 ticketing solution to. Another company that partnered with us for the India Summit is Toronto. Toronto also live on mainnet. So what they enabled, and Mark, I've heard you talk about this. You were talking about it at NASDAQ, about sustainability, right? Carbon credits and what blockchain enables. So what Toronto does, it fractionalizes and tokenizes carbon credits, so that if I'm coming to an event, right, I can actually. So they were our sustainability partner for our event. So people traveling to the summit, they could offset their own carbon footprint for travel, right? And that was attached. So we made that up as a part of the fan engagement that Asterix enabled. So the other cool thing we see happening is in interaction, creating a little bit of a circular economy where different Web3 companies are integrating with other Web3 companies to provide a more holistic solution. So I think 3 tons of carbon were offset through fractional carbon credits for people that came to the summit. All that information is, it's all on chain, it's all on mainnet, and you can see the benefits, and it's fully transparent, immutable, all the things that blockchain enables.
It's super cool. It's super cool. I guess one more question about these startups. At what stage do they come to you? Meaning, like, at what stage are you and the team on the ground in India part of working with them and helping them grow? Because I know, there's a Road to Impact that you guys do. There's a T-Hub that really helps, but you guys also play a pretty strong role in developing them and helping them as well.
I mean, there's a lot of hand-holding involved, and I mean, we all know this. We've all worked with startups. It's a tough journey, and especially in the blockchain space, before you go live on mainnet, you really need to have everything, your house in order, right? So if we think about the ones that are already live on mainnet, a number of these companies we've been working with for a year and a half, right? Because we started with them in that Road to Impact in 2023. And that was really where they kind of entered with an idea. By the time they got to the summit, 5 or 6 months later, there was an MVP that they presented. Then they went into the startup lab, and the first 3 months of the startup lab is all technical. It's our team, our India team, our dev team, really working with the startups and getting their product ready. and then they go into the go-to-market strategy, and then engaging with investors. So it's a long and we'd like to become a little more, be able to provide the support wholesale. So there are workshops that we're doing that's not just kind of customized office hours, but where we can once we understand that, hey, 8 of our 12 companies or 20 companies are dealing with this challenge with a wallet integration or something, so then do it in the form of a workshop. And I really think that same kind of model and that content that we're creating is going to be critical for our Nigeria team and other markets that we start creating this template for.
Are you focusing on certain, like the way you direct kind of startups or pick startups or engage with them? Are you picking certain verticals and say, like, we're going to focus on these types of verticals in priority, like more enterprise use cases for DeFi use cases, or like or more kind of retail oriented use cases? How are you thinking about the verticals that you see are most popular or most active?
Well, so certainly, I mean, a couple of themes that are central to the opportunities that we see coming. Identities is front and center with a lot of these projects. Supply chain, supply chain. If you think about a market like India, but globally, not only the sustainability piece, but the fact that you have contract manufacturers, you have supply chain distribution, and counterfeit or quality control becomes a real issue for these companies. And in a market like India, where it's scrappy, the margins are really small. So you have folks that are trying to, I don't mean this in a pejorative way, but you're trying to cut a corner to save a penny, but that has an impact on on the final product, right? And it's your brand that gets affected. Or if you think about like in the pharmaceutical industry, the amount of spurious drugs that enter the Indian, or that are that reach the end customer, that are manufactured in India, I mean, the numbers are, Mark, they're astronomical. So if you think about like those types of where the gaps are, where the opportunities for innovation are, I absolutely think the identity component, supply chain, financial inclusion, market access, things like that. But when we did our first startup lab, we had 5 or 6 different verticals that we identified as there's agri-tech, there is financial inclusion, there is ed tech, there are a handful of these that we identified that people came into. I think we're learning, and where does blockchain really move the needle, right? We want to recognize that blockchain is not the solution for everything. You can't, we're not trying to boil the ocean. So as we mature, I think we become more targeted in the areas that we really can go after.
So it's interesting when I hear you talk about this. It's interesting that you see a lot of like application of this technology within the Indian market that is also specific to how the Indian market operates. When you talk about like the supply chain issues or the pharmaceutical or like identity inclusion, so these are also it's Indian developers that are building blockchain-based solutions that can be deployed within India as well and targeting the Indian market, not just export only.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, to be honest, and this is kind of going back to the earlier point, that the scope for disruption in India is so massive, right? If you think about the solution that you're talking about 600-700 million people, right? That work and operate in the informal economy, for whom trust is a big challenge, right? I'm trying to sell a product or borrow money or enroll in a program that someone's questioning whether I am who I say I am, because they don't know me, right? And so intermediators are the ones that help validate me. So in a market like India, again, blockchain is huge. And when we look at what happened at our summit a couple of weeks ago, the developers in that room, and there were hundreds, or 300 people that packed the room from morning till evening. The most exciting stories for them were the ones where organizations like Mandeshi or Seva that we'll talk about, when those, they happen to be women, when those women got up and very emotionally, emphatically said, blockchain has enabled, all these women to establish identity, and what that means in terms of them being able to access finance as women entrepreneurs, or to enroll in a healthcare program, so that when the temperature is 47 degrees Celsius outside, they don't have to go to work and get sick, but they can actually stay home. They can get a micro insurance payment, or there's so much innovation that's happening that's so remarkable.
So I was gonna try to bring us to kind of finish off your approach in India.
Sorry.
And you no, and you went right there, which is exactly where I wanted to go, which is, you start, because it's a little bit of like the bottoms up, right? Like developers, the startups, but you're not just letting that be the only way you grow. And you're actually very thoughtfully and tactically also trying to build a flywheel with large partnerships like the Mandeshis and the Sevas of the world. Can you talk about that third leg of your strategy around these big partnerships that you're looking at?
Yeah. So like I said, they're very enterprise focused, right? Because so if you think about the organizations that serve, not just, I'm not just talking about the hundreds of millions that are kind of on the margins, but even larger, many of the large enterprises that serve that population, their margins are often razor thin, and the solution that they're able to deliver is still not ideal, but it's the best that person can get access to. So there is a huge appetite for these organizations that already have millions of customers and some of them, we talked about going from Web 0 to Web 3, right? They're using a hand written solution. And and our whole thing is you don't need to know blockchain, right? Blockchain is a back-end revolution. But if you're empowering this person with an app and to go out and enroll or on board, and they are recognizing how much efficiency that brings into the solution they have to offer, like they are very open to the utilization of blockchain. Their whole thing is we need to co-create it, because we're talking about it being used by a semi-literate or a less literate population. And so it's got to be something that they welcome technology, but it has to be technology that's usable by them. And so we spend a lot of time on these types of enterprise projects that we'll talk about in a second.
So let's maybe do a deep dive on one of them.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned Mandeshi. Like who is Mandeshi, and what are we doing with them?
Yeah. So Mandeshi it's India's oldest and largest women's cooperative bank. And they serve, they're mostly based in the state of Maharashtra. They have 9 bank branches, about 1 million customers. And they, Mandeshi was the first to offer them a savings product, right, for these 1 million women. And they primarily serve women because that's where, a lot of these women are the primary breadwinners in their family. They're entrepreneurs. They sometimes are, vegetable vendors, street vendors, but their biggest challenge is both, kind of storing their money, but also getting access to working capital to grow their business, right? And so what Mandeshi has historically done has been offer them, a savings product, the first pension product that was offered to these women, and then they began a lending product. And it's a loan. It's a no interest kind of revolving loan program. They had initially been lending to groups. They have a lot of these SHGs, the self-help groups in India. So there's like accountability built by lending to a group, because if you default, then it affects everybody. So everybody kind of supports them. Now they're moving to individual loans. And so Mandeshi lends to them, but Mandeshi as a cooperative bank, can only lend up until a certain point. And so because their balance sheet isn't as large as, the traditional private bank. When that woman, once she graduates from the amount of loan that Mandeshi can give them, she wants to go to a private bank, but she doesn't have a traditional credit score. And so what happens is Mandeshi, literally a person from Mandeshi, is carrying a paper folder to the bank to say, hey, I verify that this person is who they say they are. Here's the record of, the loan repayments that they've done. That process can sometimes take a year, right? Because the paper gets lost. They say they never got the file, and so that's the person. And so Mandeshi has given out over 300,000 loans to their million member, cooperative, but the demand is much greater. Not only, the number of people that want loans, but the size of loans that people need to grow their business. And so this alternative digital scorecard is a mechanism to, put a token, that it's like it's to acknowledge that certain documents exist in what India has is India Stack. It's a DigiLocker, so the document doesn't get stored in the woman's wallet, but it's stored in that DigiLocker. But there's a token indicating that, hey, that document has been verified, right? And then once you verify a certain number of documents, Mandeshi becomes the issuer of an alternative score, the credit score, right? And so that credit score is now usable by that woman to go to a private bank and apply for a loan. So there's massive benefits that are being created. So Mandeshi is originating, credit-worthy borrowers for a private bank. Of course, the benefit for that woman who doesn't have to spend half her life going back and forth between, banks and Mandeshi has been the bottleneck. They say we are the bottleneck because we have to, accompany. So that's the project that we're working on with Mandeshi. We're already live on testnet. Almost 200 women have been onboarded. We're testing it out. There'll be some tweaks that are made into the solution. And then, Min, as you know, we're hoping to launch this on mainnet in Q1 of 2025 and scale not, to just to the existing Mandeshi, member base, that they think this is a solution that is going to be usable by, women workers, micro entrepreneurs all over the country. So we've already begun to also engage with banks. We've had our first discussions with a private bank to make sure that that bank will recognize that alternative scorecard and, and take the inputs on how do we make sure that we're notating the variables that matter to you for that borrower to be a platinum borrower. Right. And so that discussion's beginning. The bank is super excited. There's 2 banks that have already initiated discussion with Mandeshi. We're just kind of the middle, we're the platform. So the solution's built by us. Mandeshi is the owner of it, and the bank, the private banks got accepted. So that's Mandeshi in a nutshell, what that project looks like.
Anil, when you say by us, it's actually not by us, right? It's by Mandeshi and the dev shop but it's using our tech, right? So I think that's kind of the model that you want to employ sort of throughout the rest of it. And I think the POC piece is actually quite interesting. It's not that they're testing the testnet. It's not that they're testing to see if the solution could work on the testnet. It's that they're testing to make sure that these women can get onboarded into this app, which is such a different way of rolling out a product, right? Marc, if you think about Google, you just maybe launched something to 5% of the users online. In this case, you literally have to physically go to the households of some of these women to kind of, have them sign up to this app. So it's very high touch, but I think once you get it right, you can roll it out and the impact can be the millions and, and millions of users. So I think that's kind of exciting for sure.
And I'll just add that, so that element of enrolling and training, so Mandeshi has a foundation. And so Mandeshi runs mobile business schools. They do this. I remember I visited them years ago. They do a bike giveaway program as a way to keep girls in schools, right? And so they have all these programs they run through the foundation. So the initial training, and they do entrepreneurship, workshops, financial literacy workshops. So we're not, all we did is go in and train, some of our people on the ground, the people at the foundation. And now the foundation has been the one that's even onboarded the first 200 that are part of the pilot.
Right. Which is actually the point of these partnerships is, right, you work with entities that have the access to the users that would use this technology. And that's exactly what you guys have been doing. And I want to hear, and I'm sure Marc does too, and more about the other partners that you guys are talking to as an example. But can we also talk, maybe we can talk about it in the context of this 2-day India summit that you guys just put together and that you just came back from. Can you tell us a little bit about the summit? What was it like? Who was there?
Yeah,
what did we miss?
Yeah,
what did Marc and I miss?
You miss a lot. You guys have to be there next year. So
be there next year.
Yeah, you will be there. Yeah. I'm going to make sure of it. So there were.
You should do a live podcast from there. Next year, we'll do a live podcast from there.
Verifiably Random for sure.
We can invite
from
some of these projects. Yeah, that'd be cool.
It'd be very, very cool to do.
Yeah. So it was, like you said, it was a 2-day summit. And the cool thing was it was kind of bookended by the graduation of the first startup class at T-Hub, right? So we have all of our startups there. On Friday was demo day. They were pitching to investors. Monday was the graduation for that first class, and in between was our massive summit, which was, it was 2 days. It was very developer focused in terms of the audience, but we were really keen to bring, the builders onto the stage. And so we had our dev track, which was, developers that had participated in this dev track challenge. And there were about 400 developers that actually entered in that process, about 170 projects. And that was narrowed down, filtered down. So that was the pipeline, the funnel, if you will, and then 11 of them actually made it to the final round and that got up on the stage. So we had these, what we call Algorand. Gyan means knowledge. And so there's these sessions that were run by our dev team in India on a workshop, talking about a real use case and then doing a code review for the audience of developers, and then having a couple of developers that are in the finalists, present their solution on stage. And it was amazing. I mean, the types of solutions that we saw, presented by these young developers from across the country. They were from, in the dev track, I think they were from, probably the finalists came from 10 different cities across India, from, from Lucknow, from Ranchi, from Kolkata, from all over. So it was really cool to have people from all over who built something on Algorand. This is something that you built a module that's going to go in. You talked about Electric Capital. All these projects, Marc, are already in GitHub. They've already put them in their repo, GitHub repo. There's a README file that's coming in. The instructions, and so the idea of what is the value of open source? How do you become a developer who's known globally in our ecosystem was front and center. So that was the first day, very developer focused. We awarded we had a leadership award that we gave at the university level. So our top Algorand blockchain club, received a huge trophy because of the leadership and support that they've given to folks in the community. And then we gave a leadership award to the chair of our advisory board, who's been so helpful, Dr. R. Sharma, for a lot of our work in India. So that was day one. And during that process, we also had all of the startups that are kind of still in the startup lab. They all had booths set up, so a lot of opportunity for our developers to interact with the founders, who've already got solutions that are built on Algorand. Day two was really a project spotlight day. So it was all around the actual projects that have gone live on Algorand from our startup lab, and then also the fireside chats with Mandeshi and Seva, another one of our enterprise projects that is already live on testnet and the pilot stage that we expect to move to mainnet in Q1 of 2025. So it was a bit of technical workshopping. It was, spotlighting what the journey looks like after you take your project to market, and what the startup lab, helped produce. And then there's a huge amount of inspiration, like these projects like Mandeshi and Seva for young developers to know that they can be a part of a solution that makes that kind of impact on their country was very inspirational, I think, for all of us.
Marc, I think you're right. We gotta go there and see for ourselves. We can't just believe this Anil guy here that this is no, but I think it's like, I think what we are, it's funny, Anil, even as you talk about it, all the energy and excitement that you're expressing. I was there. I was at the Impact Summit last year, and it's just being there and seeing all these students and developers, and the dev room at the Impact Summit last year was packed, standing room only. So I can only imagine what that felt like at the Impact Summit. I mean, the India Summit this year.
It's interesting. I mean, when I hear you talk about all these entrepreneurs, and then you have the dev shops, you're working with these partnerships, it's like the opportunity is massive, right? Like how do you think about scaling this? Like there's only one Anil, unfortunately. If you could copy paste, we could figure out a way to scale. But how do you think about scaling this as we go into next year?
Yeah. So, and I, as you guys know, this is a team effort. We get a ton of support, not only from folks at the foundation, but we have an amazing, small team on the ground that just hustles so much. But I think one of the keys is, we have to be, my focus and, a heavy amount of our kind of resource outlay is on the enterprise projects, right? Those are the ones that are large scale opportunities that we think are going to be total game changers. The benefit of the partnership with T-Hub is that, we can do much more with these 20 startups, that have been selected. And we focus our energies there, but I mean, we're open, right? We do workshops, we do, sessions that are open to a much broader community. We do a fair bit of educating through our, biweekly Twitter X spaces for the community. So a lot of, we're trying to move as much as we can to a demand-driven model. So if somebody wants something, the resources are available, right? We from our Algorand website, if you're an Algorand blockchain club or a kid at a university that wants to set up your club, here you go. Here's the template. Come and register. We'll approve it. We'll give you the resources to run it. And then the other thing that we're adding is a version of a podcast for India. Right, so we're gonna
competitor to our podcast.
Come on, we can't compete. We can't compete with you guys.
Oh,
but we
didn't talk about this.
We did not hear this.
So this is going to be a spotlight on on the builders, right? So these 15 or 20-minute sessions where you're putting, sure, you have your GitHub repo, but I want to put a face to it. I want to get that builder to talk about the solution that they're building, and they become validators of why Algorand. We don't even have to ask them. They'll tell you right away because they work on other chains, and they will tell you what is unique, what makes Algorand such an easier platform to build on. So, we want to start doing some of that. But you're right, Mark. I mean, we can't, India is a big country, so we have to be a little bit picky on how we allocate those resources, but we don't want to leave anyone behind. So I think, enterprise is huge. The startups, I think we have a good structure to support as many startups as we can. And then we want to be really wholesale in terms of supporting that large funnel of developers and, figure out how do we, continue to filter them. So the ones that are really going to be the talent pool for our, globe of Algorand startups, we can be one source of that supply of developers that serve them.
So it seems to me that like India, with everything that's going on, 2025 will be the year when you reach real world scale.
That's
with on-chain activities.
Don't fall for this trick.
Yeah.
Mark is trying to hook you into a. I'm just joking. No, but yeah, what do you see in 2025 for India? Like, what are you most excited about?
I mean, obviously it's a journey, right? So I'm sure we're going to see a lot of our startups fall and and hopefully get back up. But I do think we're going to see a massive uptick in on-chain activity, companies that launch on mainnet. I mean, we're going to see, so when you think about the future, right, for me is, so all these, kind of low-income households, individuals that begin using blockchain, right, they, over time, my hope is that they begin staking. For these women, we didn't talk about the Save Up project, but, like a micro insurance solution where, a parametric solution where, there's a smart contract, there's an oracle that dictates, that where the temperature is identified. Once it's the temperature's above that, you stay home, you get an automatic micro insurance payment, right? So I expect to see more and more of those types of solutions. From an impact perspective, it's massive, but from a protocol perspective, when we think about TVL, when we think about on-chain activity, I think we're just going to see a hockey stick increase in the year ahead.
Yeah, you guys are being super innovative with your staking ideas, because you were also talking about EV recycling, right? And then getting them, sort of this like staking their the potential return of recycling an electric vehicle battery,
and
earning earning the rewards while you do that. Like you guys are thinking quite a bit about marrying this Web 2 and Web 3 worlds in a really large scale way, which I think is exciting. Yeah,
and those are our ecosystem companies, right? So it's not like us. It's like LW3, which was the winner of last year's competition that got selected by the government of India and the EU government, because of their really innovative approach that can be used for EV battery, the life cycle, the reverse logistics of getting that battery back. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. The thing you mentioned about staking, I think to me is very interesting because it seems to me that the way to kind of get more kind of mass adoption is you start off with like solutions that are specifically designed to solve one particular use case, like for instance the Mandeshi use case that you mentioned. But then potentially as the user experience overall of interacting with blockchain becomes easier, you could kind of start opening it up, allow people to take self-custody in a way that doesn't require them to write down 25 words, right? And then open up other opportunities like staking and stuff like that. So it seems to me that that's kind of an interesting pathway towards this idea of self-custody and then the ability to kind of interact with other protocols on chain as the user experience allows this to happen.
That you're spot on, Mark. That's exactly. I mean, it's kind of like the meme coin analogy you made earlier, right? You get them in through meme coins, and then all of a sudden you have a community. Here, you get them in through a real world solution, and then you have this community that you can do much more with.
Right.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Super exciting. Well, and no, I think you just committed yourself to really driving a lot of these on-chain metrics and getting Marc access to these users.
You didn't get a number from him.
Yeah, I know.
I can't hear you. Gotta go.
Yeah. Oh, the connection's bad, eh?
This is OKR season. We need to get a number.
Yeah. Well, awesome. It's this is we could talk about India and all the great stuff you guys are doing for hours. And there's a lot of great resonance with everything that you are doing with what Matt and the team are doing on the impact side as well in Nigeria. So we're very excited to see what 2025 brings us, not just from India, but just kind of all the collective growth that you guys are driving more globally, right? Because these developers are going to be accessible anywhere from the world. And so I'm, super psyched about that. Well, thank you so much for joining us, taking this time. And we look forward to seeing you again maybe in India when you invite us to your podcast.
I have one more question. This
Marc,
is going to be this is the last episode for this year. So I want to know about holiday plans.
Yes. Yeah, let's do it. You start first. What are your holiday plans?
As you know, I'm from Belgium, so I'm flying back to Belgium on Sunday. And then looking forward to spend some time with family there and friends. And then I'll be back here January 3rd.
Nice. Okay. Well, it's far. It's a big trip. That's exciting. Yeah. And Nil, how about you?
Well, we've got our kids home from college for the first time. Everyone's back. The band's back together, as we say. So we are sitting tight here in Los Angeles, enjoying the hopefully warm weather and doing a lot of stuff around here. But this year we're staying local.
Oh, nice.
How about you, Min?
I'm heading up to Vancouver, which is where my in-laws are, and maybe we'll try to get a few days of skiing in. I did just read that there are 2 atmospheric rivers coming to the Northwest, including British Columbia and Northern California. So I'm not sure what that means for skiing, but it'll be
lots
fun.
Of powder.
Maybe lots of powder. Yeah. Or maybe quite wet. We don't know. Yeah. But it'll be really fun. Okay. Can we do a fun sort of like wrap up here? What do we think John's going to be doing for his holiday?
I think he's going to have a beer or 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah. I think John's going to be on the beach sipping his, margarita with looking out into the ocean.
No, margarita.
No,
I don't think John is a margarita guy.
Margarita guy.
Yeah. No, I don't think
Whiskey.
he's the... We should ask him. Yeah, we should ask him on the next episode. Like, who got it right?
Yeah, who got it right? All right. And Neil, you get to guess. You got to make a prediction about what John's going to do for the holidays.
I think he's, I have a great fondness for John, especially because he's got an Indian connection too, with his Indian part of his family.
His wife.
So
yes.
I hope he's eating some good pav bhaji somewhere in wherever he is in the world with his kids climbing on top of him, as every good Indian holiday is made of.
This is a slam dunk. I already won, I think.
Wait, I was going to say, Anil's got the best image. All right. Well, I guess you guys will have to come back at the next episode to see what exactly did John Woods do over the holidays. I guess until then, happy holidays to everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we will see you in 2025. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Happy holidays.
Thanks for having me.